and may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers, the merit of their Torah and holiness, support us so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit, enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so I will see wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth, God, YIRAH, gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, YIRAH, my strength and my Redeemer.
So we are in azinu 54, the hay of BeHibaram. So it opens up and says, do you thus, Zot requite Hashem. It says, Zot is the Shekinah. So Zot is Malchus. We have explained this issue that we learned that the hay of when they were created, an example, the word BeHibaram, is small, which alludes to Malchus. And the hay in this verse, do you, thus requite Hashem, is large, which alludes to Bina. These are the upper and the lower hay of the divine name Yud-Kei-Vav-Kei. It has been said that we learned that what Rabbi Yehuda said, hay always alludes to the Holy One, blessed be He, and is called a mother. It's called a mother because from the aspect of Bina, she gives birth to Zarampin and Nukva, son and daughter, and she's called mother or Ima. And from the aspect of Malchus, she's called Knesset Israel. There are two worlds, Bina and Malchus, of which it is written from everlasting world to everlasting, Tehillim 106:48. That is from Bina to Malchus. And we have learned this in regard to the meaning of the words mingled with a fourth part of a hin of beaten oil. So this is another halacha behind the offering. And so a fourth part of a hin of beaten oil refers to nukva of Atzilus. So oil is shemen. Oil is the secret of wisdom, of chokhmah. And a fourth part of a hin refers to the fourth letter of the divine name Yud-Kei-Vav-Kei, namely the nukva. So 221. It says, we learn that Rabbi Yehuda, which personifies this aspect of Zarampin and Nukva, I have looked in several places that the Holy One, blessed be He, did not withdraw His love from Israel. For wherever they were, the Holy One, blessed be He, was among them. As is written, I will not cast them away, nor will I abhor them, to destroy them utterly and to break my covenant with them. With them is exact, which means that the Holy One, blessed be He, is among them and never left them. And so this aspect of the Holy One, blessed be He, that they're talking about here refers to that quality of the Shekinah. Because we call the nukva of Zeranpin. And it is written that man is not considered Adam until he's a Karva Nukva. Even furthermore, it says that a man is not considered good and is also considered to be defective without a wife. That is to say that Zeranpin is considered to be defective until united with the Shekinah, that is to say Malchus, etc. So it says, Rabbi Yitzhak was walking along the way when Rav Chaya came across him. And he said to him, I have seen your face that you dwell in the dwelling of the Shekinah. It is written, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of Egypt, Shemos 8. It is written, and, or Vav, I am come down. Yet it should have been, I am come down, so Vav is redundant. He asks, and I am come down means beforehand, since the Vav is the prefix of the past tense. And when is that? When Yaakov went down to Egypt. Because Yaakov entered Egypt with 70 souls. And they're saying that at the beginning of the verse that the letter Vav indicates that Zeranpin is the one that's descending down. The Holy One, blessed be He, went down with him. Why did He come down? Again, refers to the Shekinah. To deliver them out of the hand of Egypt. For the aspect that went down with them was the aspect of the Nukva, meaning the aspect of Malchus. And so when we learn about the secret of the tablets and the giving of the tablets on Har Sinai, the Arizal states that this is the secret of the supernal Ima. This is also why the burning bush is the secret of the supernal Ima. And the giving of the tablets again was the supernal ima, because the mother gives its garments to the daughter, and that quality of the daughter, meaning the lower hay, which is what this section hinted at, the upper hay and the lower hay, which are both called mothers, and the secret of the mother gives her garments to the daughter, was a quality that was with them. And it was considered to be a part of the Holy One, blessed be He. So that is to say that it is called the Nukva of Zeranpin in relation. And so the purpose of it descending down to Egypt was to remove them. And so at the beginning of this passage in Shemos, which is citing here that Yaakov went down into Egypt, the first mentioning of Mitzrayim is actually spelt with a feminine hey at the end. So it's written Mitzrayim, which means two things. So Mitzrayim, or the letters Mem Sadi Resh, can also mean a restriction. And so Mitzrayim is said to be the restriction of 50, right? Referring to Simsumim. But according to the explanation that I just explained to you, that it's spelled with a hey, and the first time that's mentioned, instead of Mitzrayim, it's written Mitzrayim with a hey at the end, or Ma, hence to what can I take as a witness, what can I liken to? Meaning that the restriction took place there. This also hints to this idea of this restriction, that reality is the most restricted place for the Shekhinah, which means that it's so restricted here in our existence as if the Shekhinah doesn't even exist, yet everything, when you become aware of it, is actually self-evidently the Shekhinah. And it says, for had he not been among them, they would not have been able to tolerate the exile, as is written, I will be with him in trouble, I will deliver him and honor him. And so the word I is imo anochi. Anoki is a name indicative of Bina, and that means the supernal ima, because in truth it's the light of the supernal ima. Now, to fully flesh out the matter, is why they said that our sages are stored in the light of the moon, and this is until the returning of the queen. This is until the 7 days of her uncleanliness. This is the putting away of the woman during the time of her uncleanliness, which is a period of 7 days. So 7 days hint to the 7 days of creation. The 7 days of creation hint to the 7 vanities. Those 7 vanities hint to the rectification. This refers to the secret of Eliyahu, which has to be for 7 times, etc. So he said, for 7 years, that is. So he said to him, surely wherever Israel dwell, the Holy One, blessed be He, is among them. And wherever the sages of the generation go, the Holy One, blessed be He, goes with them, as is written, for He shall give His angels charge over you. Angels is very specific, because Malacha is the secret of Malchus. So it's not that we should read that He will give angels charge over you, but rather we should understand the Shekhinah, who is called Malchus, and that she is given charge. And so similarly, they say regarding her that she descends with her hosts. The hosts include the angels, and the Shekhinah is the overall. This is also the secret of the angel of Hashem, which is the Melech of Hashem. So what is the angel of Hashem? It means a Malchus of Zeranpin, because Hashem is obviously Zeranpin, and the Melech is the Nukva. So when it says and the angel of the Lord, or the Melech of Hashem, it refers to the Nukva of Zeranpin. This will also understand that the angel of Hashem became a Satan in another verse. This also hints to this incredible transformative nature of the Nukva. So it continues, we derive it from the verse, and Yaakov went on his way, and when Yaakov saw them, he said, this is Elohim's camp. He also woke up and said, this is the house of Elohim. He did not say it's the house of Hashem. And the 130 years of Yaakov's sojourning mirrored Adam, because Yaakov is the secret of Adam. And this is why Yaakov is the numerical value of 182, which is 26 times 7, an example of the construction of Zeranpin during this period. He personifies this aspect of rectification, mainly of the center pillar, whereas Abraham was the right side, right column, Yitzhak was left column, Yaakov personifies center column. Surely let us now join together and walk the path. I know as we are walking to a certain place to welcome the Shekhinah. And with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he said to him, it is certainly so. And Rabbi Yitzhak said, we have learned that those who act as messengers to perform a good deed are harmed neither in the going nor in the returning, and we are going to be seen for the Holy One, blessed be He, so we're not afraid. Which means that if the purpose is for you to do something for the Holy One, blessed be He, that is to say, like your purpose is to go for the Holy One, blessed be He, then it means that Hashem goes before you. So Hashem has to go before you as a messenger, as an angel, as the one who protects you. It says a fool goes out by his own steps, but the Holy One Blessed be goes out before him, before the one who walks with him, and prepares a way for them. This is this idea that if you're doing something for the sake of Hashem, Hashem will bless you, and He'll protect you from all of the chaos of this world, which means that events will not occur to be destructive towards you. But if you go out in the world and try to do something that is of your own free will and volition, then you're moving by your own 2 feet, and those are feet that are swift to come to evil. To evil is to do is there's 2 levels to evil. So evil is Reish Ain, which has a powerful idea behind Ain Hara, because Ain means the eye, and Reish is like Rashona, which hints to this idea of the head, the Reish Ain, and so Reish Ain hints to this idea of the eyes and the head, Rosh Ain. That is to say that what is evil is amalgamated from what we think. What we think is an amalgamation of what flows into Yisrael from our forms, and Ayin is to see it and then act upon it. It simply refers to Zerah, seed, which is this idea of 7 evils, which is this idea of the 7 forms of Midos. So when we go about that path, then our feet rush to evil, and that causes a bunch of problems. But if we do things for the Holy and Blessed be He, like if you wake up in the morning and your purpose is to go study Torah, you have no reason to fear evil. You're not going to worry about walking down the street and getting mugged or any of these other things, because you're on a mission for the King. And if you're on a mission for the King, the Holy and Blessed be He will ensure your safety. Everything that you do for the King is protected. And that's the main point of this portion here. So while they were walking, Rav Chaya personifies this quality of Chaya, which is Chokhmah. Wisdom gives life to its possessor. And it is written, these are the generations of the heaven and the earth. Now this is an incredible passage, because again, I've already alluded to this idea where they gave this shocking reference behind Ima and the son, and I said that this is the mother who was put away with the son. And I sent the mention of man of Berea, and I gave a lower Peshat interpretation, but there was a deeper Sod interpretation, which was really hinting to it right here. What you need to understand is that this is the generation Toldos, Hashemayim v'charetz, right? This generations. You gotta understand that the term generations is a generative form. The generations are the exact same as this is the generation of the book of Adam, right? These are the generations of Adam. These are the generations of Noach, etc. It's a generative term. A generative term like a progenitor and then generate something. It's a term that alludes to birth. Thus, the entire story of heaven and earth, from which it's very specific, Hashemayim v'charetz, which literally is talking about the heaven and the earth, which hints to Berea, which hints to the very first verse of the Torah, is discussing the generative pregnancy. It's discussing pregnancy. And this is a matter that's talked about in great detail in the Book of Dragons. And from the exact same reason that if the first verse is talking about pregnancy, how long is the woman said to be unclean for? And the answer to our sages is 7 days. For this reason, Rashi says that Hevel, Hevelim, Hevel, Hevelim, Kol Hevel refers to the 7 days of creation, which are considered to be vanity and everything therein, because from a halachic standpoint, if we say that the heaven and the earth is a generative term in example pregnancy, that means that everything that took place during those 7 days of creation were considered to be unclean. And we know that Elohim was the one that was involved with this scenario, and this is the aspect of the female, and she was rendered unclean by degree of giving birth. This uncleanliness is what introduced all this zoma, all of this filth that was injected, this admixture. This is the reason why Yeshayahu says, lift your eyes to the heavens above, the earth below. Behold, the heavens are going to pass away like a vapor, and the earth is going to pass away like a garment. This idea of them passing away is because the heaven and earth that we currently exist in was not in its time, was this zoma, this injection of uncleanliness, which came about through 2 reasons. One, because she was rendered unclean after birth for 7 days precisely, which is exactly the referring to those 7 days of creation, which are considered to be unclean. Which is why we say day 2 is when Gehinnom was created, and we say it wasn't good. We say Me'arot was the day that curses were introduced into the reality. That the word Me'arot, the word lights, an example, the sun and the moon, refer to curses. Well, why would curses be introduced? What would be the purpose of that? And isn't the fourth day corresponding to Netzach? How do we say something from the right column possibly brings about curses? But nonetheless, these are very deep, deep, deep matters that those who know the ways of the deeper wisdom, as it's revealed in the Book of Dragons, will understand the matter fully, especially when it's talking about the birth of the kings, which we know the Arizal talks about in Apples in the Orchard. And so it's really important that you understand this is the generations of the heavenly earth, that this term toldos is a generative term. It's a generative term. That means that it's giving birth. This is the generations of Adam, this is the generation of Noah, etc. So the heaven comes to include the Holy One, blessed be He. This is a frightening text because now he's identifying the Holy One, blessed be He, as Zeranpin. And Zeranpin contains the name of the Holy One, blessed be He, as we know, but he's called Yud-Kei Vav-Kei by a name. You know, it's for the exact reason why we don't call him by a name. We don't call him by a name because we don't worship Zeranpin, but we say Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And this comes to include all of the worlds as opposed to saying the name as an actual name because we don't worship Zeranpin. And because Zeranpin is by the exact same name as the Atik, and this is the secret of Shemos, Hashem, Hashem, and then it says Urav, it says Erech Hapim Urav Chesed, right? The Lord is slow to anger and abundant in kindness, and the 13 attributes. But the beginning of that portion says Hashem, Hashem, with a dash in between them, Hashem, Hashem. The point of mentioning it twice is that the first one is considered incomplete and the second one is considered complete. That is to say, the first one refers to the Vav in the divine name, which is called Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and the second one is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei in terms of the worlds. So here it's talking about the Holy One, blessed be He, in relation to Zeranpin. And it's talking about the heavens. Namely, Zeranpin called heaven, and the earth comes to include the Holy One, blessed be He, who is Malchus, called the earth, an example, the Nukva. And because the Nukva is called the Nukva of Zeranpin, it comes to be one. Therefore, because the Nukva is considered to be a part of the Holy One, blessed be He, sometimes it's considered to be the Holy One, blessed be He. Despite the fact that we're talking about the Nukva, in relation, it's still a part of the overall Partsuf of Zeranpin called the Holy One, blessed be He. And so therefore, it can be used in this context. And so sometimes when he uses the term Holy One, blessed be He, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it comes to refer to the Nukva. And sometimes when he uses HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it comes to refer to Zeranpin. And sometimes when they use HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it comes to refer to the Atik. And all amount to the same thing. Because the term Holy One, blessed be He is a general term. Because who's He? That's not specified. A specific detail would be the heaven. A specific detail would be the earth. A specific detail would be the Atik. From which then the Holy One, blessed be He, is not in the general term. That is to say, not specified. But it becomes specified. But because they're all a part of the overall parts called the Atik, meaning Zeranpin is in the Atik, Nukva is in the Atik, it suffices that all of them can go by the name of the Holy One, blessed be He, be that they are all parts of the Holy One, blessed be He, in general. So that's the key there. So it says, and all that is below Atzilus, namely the three worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, are called the generations of heaven and of earth. And now this is the idea that in the very first verse, we're talking about Ima of Atzilus, who produces Zeranpin and Nukva, and that the generations of the heaven and the earth refer to the worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, which come about as if a lineage, like a birth, like as with Adam. He said to him, in that case, what is when they were created BeHibaram? We learned that BeHibaram, with Hey he created them, BeHibaram. So with Hey he created them. And so this hints to two ideas. One, the lower Hey hints to this idea of the Nukva, but it also comes to include the same thing as the upper Hey, that with the upper Hey he also came to include them. And the word BeHibaram also comes as a saruf BeAvraham. And the idea of Avraham comes to include the word ever, which means the yisod, or the reproductive organ, which is called a limb, spelled Aleph Beis Resh. And what the remaining letters of BeHibaram or BeAvraham are Hey and Mem, which is Ma, which is to say the Nukva. So it comes to include Zeranpin and the Nukva in the word Avraham, which is BeHibaram. It comes to include them both. So yet you say there are generations of heaven and earth, namely of Zeranpin as well. So that's the idea. So they're questioning this idea. You're saying BeHibaram, you're saying in Hey they created him, But in reality, it comes to include Zeranpin, as you've just hinted to, is what he's saying. And therefore, I've given you the solution that BeAvraham comes to include the limb and what? Which is Nukva and Zeranpin as well. He said to him, it is all the same thing, since when heaven, which is Zeranpin, is joined with Malchus, then this Hay, which is Malchus, produce generations. And this is the idea of pregnancy. This is the idea of giving birth. This is what the term was when the Arizal used the term zivug, because zivug is a type of sexual copulation that brings about a lower existence. But the copulation that occurs between the male and the female at the upper world is not in the same manner as the type of copulation that occurs down here in the physical world. Although the physical world is a branch and manifested kalim, a manifested branch, a reflection of the upper zivugim, nonetheless, they are different. Just like I've said, in one place, Yisod refers to the reproductive organ. In another place, it refers to the mouth. In another place, it refers to the mind. And so the copulation that occurs at the mind is different than the copulation that is produced with the goof, with the body. Even though this too is a type of zivugim, because we become impregnated with ideas. And this is when one's mind or mental form or yisod expresses it to another yisod or mental form, which they exchange through a type of zivugim. And this type of copulation should not be confused with sexual copulation, despite the fact it is the same principles. An example, the principle of yisod interacting with the principle of yisod. And this is the reason why sages have ibur. They impregnate people by their ideas. When people study the words of a sage, they receive what's called an ibur, literally a pregnancy. That pregnancy is because you're interacting with the righteous sod. It's the quality of their soul, which has been uploaded by their consciousness, the mental form. And when we study their words, it stimulates our mental form. This zivug between our mental form and their mental form is a type of copulation. And this is what produces a pregnancy. This pregnancy is the pregnancy of ideas. Now, when the yisod is filled with kedusha, then it's an impregnation of kedusha, meaning holiness. And when the impregnation comes about through zohma, then it's a filth. So this is this is an example hidden into the idea of the counsel of the wicked. If you're around people that have bad mentalities, they're bad midos, that they're always complaining, they always have negative attributes, then your mental form is inadvertently having a zivugim with their mental form. And so then their negativity affects your state of consciousness, because your state of consciousness is being impregnated by their negativity, because there's a type of spiritual zivugim that happens to the mental form, because it's yisod, which couples with yisod. It's the same thing with the kedusha. If you're around someone who's an extreme kedusha, then your mental form becomes impregnated by these aspects of kedusha or holiness, because it's being channeled through yisod, deep levels. But these should not be confused with physical zivugim, because that's not how the zivugim occurs up there. And the same thing with the unions of Zerampin and Nukva, which happens through about the Chasadim and Gevurot, spreading at a much higher level, which really refers to the Panemios and the internality and externalities, which form a kalim and light, or vessel and light, because that's how those levels are better interpreted, with vessels and lights, and the creation of vessels and the filling of lights. He said to him, if that is so, why have we explained that BeHibaram means BeAvraham and Avraham, which is spelled the same letters? How is Abraham connected with this? And he said to him, it's all the same. BeAvraham is chesed, that is called Avraham, that is, he is the heaven that is Zeranpin. And from there, from the sphere of chesed, Zeranpin begins to spread. That is the first sphere of Zeranpin and chesed, and so the name Avraham alludes to Zeranpin like the name heaven. Okay, so this is an inserted commentary again, and it doesn't invalidate the commentary, but it's just not the highest level. The highest level is, as I've stated before, that Avraham is formed of two words, ever, which means limb, and it refers to the phallus, the reproductive organ, right? Zeranpin, Yisod. And Hey Mem are the letters Ma, which is to say the Nukva. What can I take as witness to? What can I liken to? I call heaven and earth, bear witness against this day. So that refers to the Nukva. So the word Avraham comes to include these two qualities. That is to say, Zeranpin, alluded to by the word ever or lim, and He and Mem, which is Ma, which is the Nukva. That's the more proper understanding. He said to him, "It is surely so. I have learned that it is written, these are the generations of the heaven and the earth. And we have learned that this world was created with Hay, which means Malchus, as written BeHibaram, BeHibaram, that is to say, with Hay, he created them. The world to come, which is Bina, is created with Yod, which is Chokmah, and is written, and a river goes out of Eden to water the garden. The river, which is Bina, goes out of Eden, Chokmah, to water the garden, namely Zeranpin. He also says that a river that went out of Eden incorporates the heaven, which is Zeranpin. It is also called a river. The garden incorporates the earth, which is Malchus, because obviously a garden sits upon the earth. Thus, the explanation also says that Zeranpin goes out of Chokmah and Bina, that are both called Eden, and waters Malchus, the secret of the garden. That explanation is more convoluted, but the proper understanding was the aforementioned: a river goes out of Eden, which is to say, Bina emerges from Chokmah, and to water the garden, because a garden sits on top of the earth. The garden refers to Zeranpin, which is Gan Eden, or in this case, it's a garden and there's Eden, which is Eden is the upper portion of the garden, and then the garden itself, which in this case refers to a different garden, because the first garden is he planted them in the Garden of Eden, and that garden was planted to the east. That refers to a different garden, and then it's written, and a river goes out of Eden to water the garden. That's the second garden. The second garden that's talked about here is Zeranpin, and then the garden, of course, sits on top of the earth. This is the Nukva. The reason why is because the garden is filled with all kinds of what? Shrubs and trees. And shrubs and trees are all keywords for Zeranpin. This is hinted at by the idea of the third day. On the third day, it says, let the earth bring forth grass and shrub and all these other different qualities, which are all aspects of Tiferes, or all aspects of the garden, from which Zeranpin is called both bush, shrub, and many other different terms like this. For we have learned that the words a fountain of gardens, Shirashirim, refers to heaven, which is Zeranpin, that is called a river, is mentioned. It is a well of living water, as it is written, and there Isaac's servants dug a well, and he removed from there and dug another well, the streams from Lebanon. So streams from Lebanon refers to Chokmah, which is called Lavan, which is whiteness. And so it says, namely from Chokmah, that is called Lebanon, and the streams are adorned above with Chokmah. This hints the idea of the cedars of Lebanon. The cedars of Lebanon is because Lebanon refers to Lavan, whiteness, Livna, the whiteness. This whiteness is the supernal Chokmah, and thus the temple is built out of Atzilus. Wisdom built her house, and obviously those would be the cedars of Lebanon. So it says, and rises to the head of the king, namely the first of the Spheros. As it is written, in your steadfast love, chesed, is great above the heavens. Since they are drawn from Chokmah, which is above Zeranpin, called heaven, since they are drawn from Chokmah, which is Zeranpin, called heaven. So you can see that they've repeated the exact same verse on 227. This tells you that towards the end of this, it's a complete mess. They rushed it. Their explanations are all over the place. They really didn't flesh out the matter, and that's because they really weren't qualified to be commenting on the YIRAH. The YIRAH is the most deepest part of the Zohar, but I'll explain it. What they're trying to hint to this idea is they're saying that the streams of Lebanon, so the stream refers to Bina, which is a river that goes out of Eden. Lebanon refers to Chokmah. Now he talks about these wells, and this is the real secret. Chokmah is called a sea, the upper sea. It's called Yam, as we know. And this is not to be confused with Malchus, which is called Yam Sof. This is hinted in the idea where it's written, all rivers flow to the sea, from the place they came, there they return. This river that goes out of Eden is a river that flows from the sea. What does this teach us? That every river is connected to what? A sea. Now, from the river, it breaks off into streams. This stream is the secret of Da'as. So we have Chokmah, which is called the sea, turns into a river, which is Bina, a river that goes out of Eden, which turns into a stream, which is Da'as. And from these streams, Da'as fills the house. That is to say, under the ground, now this is how we'll explain it, like a garment, a malbush, right? So what is covering the streams or underground pathways, because you cannot actually see where Da'as is spreading, but rather the garden, which is this idea of the earth, is a covering for this stream, which means underground flow pathways of water, meaning that it's under the level of Zeranpin. This is why a well has to be dug down to get the water, right? Because these streams that are breaking off refer to that which is concealed underneath, because Chokhmah is garbed inside of Bina. Bina ultimately is garbed inside of Zeranpin. But Chokhmah and Bina are garbed in Da'as, and Da'as is ultimately garbed by Zeranpin, and Zeranpin is ultimately garbed by the Nukva. And the general idea behind this is that the sea is Chokhmah, it breaks into a river, which is Bina, and from a river it breaks into streams, which is Da'as, and from the streams flow underground channels into these 7 wells. And this is why it's mentioning the well of Isaac and so on and so forth. And it's from those wells we actually drink. We don't drink from the stream, we don't drink from the river, we don't drink from the ocean, but we drink from the well. And this talks about, and this is also a secret of refinement in tikkun of shefa. There's a filtration process that occurs that happens to the nature of how we interact with the Ein Sof, which are the secret of this water. He explains his word from Lebanon, which is Chokhmah, come out streams in plenty to Bina, which is a river that goes out of Eden, and flow and are drawn to all corners, namely the 4 winds, Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, and Malchus. So it is as I've explained. Lebanon is Chokhmah, river that goes out of Eden is Bina. Streams refers to Da'as, and from here it flows to the 4 corners, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, and Malchus, which are these wells. The well of Abraham, the well of Isaac, the well of Yaakov, etc. They all dug wells until the fount stream and come together in that place called the Great Sea. And this refers to Malchus, because they ultimately all gather back at the sea. As it is written, all rivers run into the sea. From the place they came, there they return. Which means that the streams of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet of Malchus is run into Malchus, that is called the sea. It is also written, look to the rock whence you are hewn. That is to say, look to the Nukva, because that's where we're drawn from. Which is Abraham, namely Chesed of Zeranpin, following, and streams from Lebanon, it is written, a garden encloses my sister, my bride. Look to the rock from whence you are hewn refers to the Nukva. They're saying it refers to Chesed of Zeranpin. You should just ignore most of the commentary that's in this portion. It's all over the place and really, really a tragedy. Look to the rock. Rock refers to Malchus. And which you are hewn, so it means Knesset Israel, why she's called a mother. A garden enclosed is my sister and my bride refers to Bina. And so it says, generations come out to all of the worlds as it is written when they were created, BeHibaram, which is to say when they were created with hay. That is to say, look to the rock whence you were hewn, which refers to Malkut, as I just explained. And this is why it says, when you look to the rock, then it says BeHibaram. And this is the justification for the explanation that he's giving. Furthermore, a garden closes my sister, my bride, hence to Bina, who is both sister and bride to Chokhmah. Thus he created them with hay. Actually with Avraham, and Avraham again is Aver, the limb, and Ma, which is Malchus. It continues on the bottom. Rav Yitzchak said, even with Yaakov himself, it is all the same. And that is to say, the same idea is presented with Yaakov. This is the idea that he's creating with the two. For example, he places a stone under his head. The stone can be at the feet. It's a stumbling block, the nukva. It's then elevated to tiferes, which is the heart. It says, I'll remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Of flesh, it's written, the two shall come together and be one flesh, which is Malchus and Tiferes. And of this, Yaakov, who personifies the heart, because he's Tifereth, places the stone or uplifts it in the secret of, I will lift your name above the heavens. That is to say, Malchus above the heavens, meaning above Zeranpin, to where? That place called Da'as, because Da'as sits under the head, and the head is Ehi Asher Ehi, the Rosh, Keter Hokmah Bina. Underneath the head refers to Da'as. That's where the stone was lifted, where he has the vision of Yaakov's ladder, which has 7 steps, as our sages said. And from there, it had 12 the 12 tribes, and he erected there a pillar. That pillar is precise. It connected the center column. That's the idea. And so when he's saying that Yaakov is the same, he's saying that it's the same idea that the generations or the levels of the upper worlds and lower worlds were created through this combination of Zarmpin and Nukva. That Yaakov personifies the same aspect. So the main takeaway, unfortunately, the commentary in this section is abysmal. The main understanding that should be understood from this place is that heaven and earth is a generative term, and that everything comes about through a zivugim between Zarampin and Nukva. And both upper and lower world should be understood as vessel and light. And we should understand that the nature of zivugim that happens in the upper world is not to be interpreted literally as in referring to the goof, because Yisod doesn't just refer to the goof. Yisod can also refer to the mouth. Yisod also refers to the mental form. Yisod also refers to the Sadiq, the righteous, so on and so forth. And we should understand the nature of spiritual ibur, or spiritual pregnancy. The idea of pregnancy here in the body as it relates to the goof is a baby in the womb. The idea as it refers to the mental idea of the mental form is a ibur of ideas. The pregnancy as it relates into the generation of the heavenly earth is this idea of vessel and light. These vessels and light come about through Hashemayim, or Hay, 5, Esh, fires, and 5, Mayim, waters, from which our sages said heaven is created from fire and water, which are the 5 Chasadim and the 5 Givaros. These 5 Chasadim and 5 Givaros act as a vessel and a light. And this idea of Kalim and light are how these lower worlds are created. The lower worlds are created from a combination of this vessel and light, which emerge from that place. We call it through a quality of zivug, a zivug between right and left, etc. So the other part of this is this idea of BeHibaram, which is to say that the world is created through the female. This hints to this idea that everything was created through the name of Elohim and not the name of Hashem. And this is, as I've stated, why the days of creation were considered to be unclean, is because we're actually dealing with birth, and a woman is considered to be unclean for 7 days after she gives birth. Some say 14 days, but in reality it's 7 days. That means that everything that was in the days of creation are considered to be unclean. This is exactly why the 7 vanities, and this is exactly why Yeshayahu says the heaven and earth are going to pass away, because the Torah tells us that the heaven and earth is a generative term. Generative term means to give birth. It means pregnancy. And based off of that very idea, that's why it says Varuach Elohim Merel Chefet Opin Echamayim. Because what are the waters? This is like water that from giving birth. So the waters from giving birth, right? And this is also hinted at in the word Merel Chefet, vibrated, and so on and so forth. Because the letters Merel Chefet, right, I can spell the word Reish Chet Mem, which means womb, the womb, literally the word womb. And so therefore this idea of vibrated, it means the womb. And over the waters is like water, like the womb that is above waters as the water breaks and flows from underneath the womb. It's exactly like that, and gives birth to all of the lower worlds, where all of the lower worlds ultimately are out of this coupling or zivugim, or this birth of the heaven and the earth, from which the heaven and the earth are ultimately responsible for the creation of everything. And this is further expounded upon in the mother sin and the foolish king, where the heaven is identified as the foolish king, and from which it says that everything was created by the foolish king. That is to say, everything was created by the heaven. And the foolish king is the 7-headed dragon. That's why they're all called the 7 kings of Edom. This is why Vicharet are the 7 earths, because their Melech or king is the same Malchus. So all these things are talked about in greater detail. They're only being hinted at in great wonders through the words of the Torah. But the main takeaway from this last portion that it's talking about is to inform us that creation, or an example of Genesis, is talking about birth, giving birth. This is a very important concept, because it's not until the end of the Zohar where we finally get into the section where they're expounding this aspect of BeHibaram that we can even understand what Genesis is even talking about. Because this is taking us back to the heaven and the earth. This is taking us back all the way to the beginning of the Torah. We're at the very end of Chazinu, the very end of the Zohar. And finally the Zohar gives us keys that make us reinterpret the entire beginning, just so that when we chew the cud and return back to the beginning of the Zohar, we will approach the Zohar's beginning with this idea of birth. And when we do, then we can see how everything is caught up in this divine secret of birth, With this, you can better understand why it says, and Ima created without Abba. And with this, you can understand why the Arizal said that the heaven and the earth refer to Zarimpin of Berea and the Nukva of Berea, and that it was self-conceived out of Elohim, mainly Bara, which was the Ima of Atzilus, as it said, which says the Ima of Berea created through the power of Ima of Atzilus, is what it said. So this is very, very, very divine, sublime mysteries. And you can also see with this key why I said that one cannot study Lurianic Kabbalah until they master the Zohar. Because until you start to read these passages and have rightfully merited that kind of conversation, you can't really make sense of why the Arizal is saying these things, or why he's so explicit about Ima and creating, and the heavens being, and the earth referring to the kings of Edom, etc., and how this stuff is referring to this idea of these broken kalim. And this is why the most sublime tractate and the most esoteric tractate, and one tractate that you find in Likutei, which is at the beginning of Sefer HaSodar Azina Satan, is an explosive commentary on the tractate Nida. Because the tractate Nida cannot be understood at all until you access this level. The tractate Nida contains inside of it some of the most divine mysteries of creation. It's all concealed in tractate Nida. Because tractate Nida doesn't even make any sense. Tractate Nida talks about women giving birth to sandal fetuses, which is like a sandal, like a shoe. Or it talks about a woman giving birth to an animal. Women can't give birth to an animal. It's impossible. Biologically, it's impossible. But it's not impossible when you see, and let the earth bring forth living creatures, because the earth is certainly the female, and living creatures would certainly be those animals that I was talking about in Nida. And so once you understand that the Talmud can only be interpreted at a Sod level and not a Peshat level, because you interpret Talmud at Peshat level, it's madness, makes zero sense. But you interpret at a Sod level, and you begin to see the real supernal wisdom that the sages had hidden inside of it. And Tractate Nida is the best of all of the examples, because that tractate contains all the highest mysteries of primordial creation. And thus we learned in book 22 also, the sandal refers to what? Sandalphon. What is Sandalphon? That's why Samael and Sandalphon is a numerical value of the word tohu. Tohu. Sandalphon is a numerical value of the 5 Sofit letters, which are the 5 Geburot. I mean, the levels then, this is how we start to enter into the inner levels of the Arizal's writings. Because how do they know where Sandalphon is located? How do we know that it's associated with Rachel's Partsuf? How do we know that it's associated with the Geburos? All of these different kind of sublime mysteries. It's through a language of branches, which the wise know the ways of the Torah in order to find and navigate them way through the language of branches. Garments on garments. And only the words of the Torah can guide you into the proper and true understandings. This is all preparation for those levels, to even access those things. Because when we go back through our Torah, when we start back at the beginning of the Zohar very soon here, we're going to get back at the beginning of Bereshis, and we're going to get back to that portion where it says, you are my partner. And we're going to get back into that portion where it says, let us create man. And there's going to talk about Ima creating without Abba again. Except this time, for the friends that have come this far into the Zohar, they will understand the matter much more fully, understanding that it's referring to birth. So with that being said, that's the main takeaways. The main takeaways are the interactions of Zivugim, the levels of Zivugim, and this idea that Genesis is talking about giving birth. So with that being said, many, many, many blessings, you all. As David Amelech said, open my eyes and behold the wonders of Torah. Amen, everyone. Laila Tov, Shalom Salah.
Amen.